The 47th floor of Richardson Tower always carried the smell of chemicals at night. Bleach, floor wax, the faint metallic tang of disinfectant. It was the scent of other people's hard work, invisible labor that vanished by morning, leaving everything gleaming as though no one had ever touched it. Carmen Santos was used to that rhythm. At 48, her knees ached from years of scrubbing, her hands were cracked from endless buckets of soapy water, yet she moved with quiet efficiency. Tonight, like every night, she hummed softly under her breath, trying to keep herself awake. It was nearly midnight. The offices were empty, the glass windows reflecting only the city lights below. Carmen wrung out her mop, thinking of her daughter, Jessica. If Jessica's midterms went well, the girl might be one step closer to graduating on time. Carmen smiled faintly at the thought. All these hours, all the sore muscles, it would be worth it once her daughter no longer had to worry about money. The ding of the elevator broke the silence. Carmen glanced up, expecting a security guard or perhaps a late-night executive. What she saw instead made her pause. Tyler Richardson, the heir himself, staggered out in a tailored suit that had lost its crispness hours ago. His blonde hair was damp with sweat, his pupils blown wide, and the smell that rolled off him was a sickening mix of whiskey and something sharper: cocaine. He moved like a man who had forgotten gravity, like the floor belonged to him and him alone. Carmen lowered her gaze quickly. "Good evening, sir," she murmured, hoping to pass unnoticed. But fate, cruel as ever, intervened. Tyler's expensive loafers caught the edge of her cleaning bucket. The water sloshed violently, spilling across the floor and onto him. His white Italian silk shirt absorbed the mess instantly, turning translucent as streaks of soapy water spread down in his chest. For a moment, there was silence, the kind of silence that comes before a storm. Then Tyler let out a growl, not the sound of a man embarrassed, but of a predator who had been challenged. He looked down at the stain, then up at Carmen, his face twisting into something ugly. "Do you know what this shirt costs?" His voice was low, dangerous. He yanked at the fabric as though the very water burned him. $3,000, ruined, because of you." Carmen's throat tightened. "I'm so sorry, sir. It was an accident. I'll pay for it to be cleaned." "Pay?" He laughed, sharp and humorless. "With what? Your paycheck? Do you even make that much in a month?" Her hands trembled as she bent to mop the mess, desperate to fix it. "Please, I didn't mean—" Tyler crouched suddenly, snatching the phone from her cart before she could react. His drunken eyes scanned the screen, landing on a contact name. Jessica. His lips curled into a cruel smile. "So this is your daughter." He straightened, swaying slightly but still fueled by arrogance. "She goes to my university, doesn't she?" Carmen froze. Fear surged through her chest. "Please leave her out of this. She has nothing to do with—" "On the contrary," Tyler interrupted, his grin widening as if he'd stumbled upon a brilliant idea. He began typing rapidly on her phone. "Your daughter's about to learn that actions have consequences. When people like you forget your place, it's your family who pays the price." The phone buzzed in his hand, confirming the message was sent. He handed it back with a mocking bow. Carmen's heart pounded as she read the screen. "Mom, I need urgent help in the parking lot. Come quickly." It was signed with her name, though she hadn't written it. Tears stung her eyes as she looked at him, but Tyler only leaned closer, the scent of alcohol thick on his breath. "Relax," he whispered, his voice coated in menace. "I'm not going to ruin your life tonight. I'm going to ruin hers. Your daughter will pay for your mistake." The words hung in the sterile, fluorescent-lit hallway, colder than the marble floors beneath her feet. Carmen's pulse raced with dread. She wanted to scream, to call someone, to stop this madness before it began. But Tyler Richardson was already walking toward the stairwell, humming softly to himself, her daughter's fate dangling like a toy in his careless hands. And Carmen, powerless in her uniform and rubber gloves, could do nothing but pray that Jessica would understand the danger before it was too late. The underground parking lot of Richardson Tower was always unnervingly quiet at night. The echo of dripping pipes, the faint hum of fluorescent lights, the smell of oil and concrete, those were the only witnesses to what happened there after dark. Jessica Santos hurried down the ramp, her sneakers slapping against the polished floor. She had dropped everything the moment her mother's message came through. "Mom, I need urgent help in the parking lot. Come quickly." She hadn't even questioned it. Her mother never asked for help unless something was truly wrong. But as she reached the bottom level, the silence pressed in on her. No sign of Carmen's cleaning cart, no familiar figure in uniform, just rows of gleaming luxury cars and shadows that seemed to stretch too far. Jessica slowed, her breath forming small clouds in the chilled air. Something wasn't right. "Mom?" she called softly, Her voice echoed off the concrete walls, carrying farther than she wanted. That was when he stepped out. Tyler Richardson. His suit jacket hung open, the once crisp shirt clinging damply to his chest, still marked with the faint stain of soap water. His grin was slow, crooked, and dangerous. "Looking for someone?" he asked, his voice smooth with drunken confidence. Jessica froze. She'd seen him before on campus, always surrounded by a pack of entitled friends, throwing money around Ike. It was confetti, the kind of guy everyone knew to avoid if they valued peace. But seeing him here, in the shadows of an empty parking lot, his eyes bloodshot and wild, was something else entirely. "My mother," she said carefully, her tone steady though her gut tightened. "She texted me. Where is she?" Tyler chuckled, the sound low and cruel. "Your mother had an accident, ruined my shirt. Do you know how much that shirt costs?" Jessica frowned, taking a cautious step back. "Where is she?" He moved faster than she expected. One moment he was leaning casually against a pillar. The next his hand shot out and clamped around her throat. The force of it slammed her back against the cold concrete wall. The impact rattled through her spine, stealing her breath. Jessica gasped, her fingers instinctively grabbing at his wrist. But she didn't thrash. She didn't panic. She stayed still, her body calm even as pressure closed around her windpipe. Tyler's face hovered close, his breath thick with whiskey and powder. "Your mother thought she could disrespect me. Do you know who I am? I don't let things like that slide. Someone has to pay." On the other side of a glass security door, hidden in the shadows, Carmen Santos pounded frantically against the reinforced window. Her muffled cries went unheard, her face twisted with terror as she watched her daughter being strangled. Jessica met Tyler's eyes. To his surprise, there was no fear there, no wide-eyed pleading, no desperation, only a cold, unreadable calm. It unsettled him, though he masked it with a sneer. "You should be begging me right now," he growled, tightening his grip. "You should be crying, screaming, promising me anything. That's how this works." But Jessica didn't scream. Her breathing, though constricted, remained controlled. Her body didn't fight in desperation. It adjusted, her feet grounding firmly on the floor, her stance quiet but deliberate. Something in her gaze flickered. A spark Tyler didn't recognize, but should have. It was the look of someone studying him, measuring his every movement, every weakness. Still blinded by arrogance, Tyler mistook her composure for defiance. His rage deepened. "Your mother is going to watch you learn respect," he hissed, nodding toward the window where Carmen banged helplessly. "Then maybe I'll decide if she keeps her job, or if you both find out what happens when people like you step out of line." Jessica's lips curved slightly, the faintest trace of a smile, even with his hand crushing her throat. That smile should have been a warning, but Tyler Richardson, drunk on money and privilege, had never learned to recognize real danger until it was too late. The concrete pressed cold against Jessica's back as Tyler's hand tightened around her throat. The dim fluorescent lights above flickered, buzzing faintly, like the whole garage was holding its breath. Most people would have been clawing, kicking, crying out for air by now. But Jessica remained still, her eyes locked on him, her breath controlled in short, sharp pulls through her nose. That unshakable calm unnerved Tyler more than he wanted to admit. He leaned in closer, forcing bravado into his smirk. "What's wrong? Cat got your tongue? Or maybe you like this kind of attention?" His words dripped with malice. But inside Jessica's mind, there was no fear, only focus. Years of training had carved that instinct into her. She remembered her first day in the dimly lit boxing gym on the south side, the smell of leather and sweat clinging to the air. She had been 15, skinny, angry, and invisible. Coach Ramirez had wrapped her hands and said, "In here, your silence is power. Let them underestimate you. Let them think you're weak, then show them." That lesson lived inside her. Every spar, every fight, every opponent who had looked at her and thought she was just another girl trying to act tough, it had sharpened her calm into a weapon. Her body remembered all of it now. Tyler, drunk and coked up, saw only a young woman trapped against a wall. He didn't see the fighter calculating distance, testing his balance, studying the tremor in his hand. He didn't notice how her shoulders shifted, how her weight subtly adjusted, how even with his palm against her throat, she never looked like prey. From behind the locked security glass, Carmen's fists pounded desperately, her muffled cries breaking into hoarse sobs. To her, Jessica was still just her daughter, the girl she'd raised alone, the girl she'd worked herself to the bone for. Carmen had no idea that in secret, her daughter had built another life. Late nights after tutoring shifts, Jessica had slipped into underground gyms, fighting men twice her size under the name Silent Storm. No one had known. Not her professors, not her classmates, not even her mother. She had fought for money, for pride, for the thrill, and she had never lost. 17 fights, 17 wins, 15 of them knockouts. Her record was whispered in hushed tones by those who had seen her in the ring, but outside those circles, she was invisible, just as she wanted. Now, facing Tyler Richardson's arrogance, she realized invisibility had become her greatest weapon. "Beg," Tyler spat, his grip trembling slightly as her unflinching stare gnawed at his confidence. "That's what people like you do." Jessica's lips parted, her voice raspy but steady. "You think I've never had someone try to break me?" Her words were quiet, almost a whisper, but they landed sharp. "You're not the first, and you won't be the last." For the first time, Tyler faltered. Something in her tone, in her poise, rattled him. Jessica let the silence stretch, then leaned forward just enough that her breath touched his cheek. "Telma." "Hey, Tyler," she murmured, her eyes narrowing. "Has anyone ever beaten you up before?" The question caught him off guard. His laugh came out jagged, forced. "You think you could?" But his laughter cracked halfway, because deep down, some primal instinct warned him he was no longer in control. Behind the glass, Carmen's sobbing stopped for a moment. She saw it too, the shift in her daughter's eyes, the quiet storm rising behind them. Tyler had mistaken silence for submission. He didn't yet understand it was the silence of a fighter waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And in that silence, the balance of power began to shift. The parking lot felt tighter now, as if the very air had grown heavy. Tyler still had his hand on Jessica's throat, but his grip wasn't as steady. He masked it with bravado, laughing harshly, but his laughter echoed against the concrete like something hollow. Jessica hadn't moved. She didn't need to. Her stillness was louder than his rage. Then his phone buzzed. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. Tyler flinched. He pulled the phone from his pocket with his free hand, trying to maintain control with the other. The screen glowed against his flushed face. At first, his grin stayed cocky, but then his eyes narrowed. The first message was a photo, grainy, taken at one of his private yacht parties. Tyler himself sprawled across a leather couch, lines of powder on the table, 2 girls barely conscious beside him. The second message was a video. He tapped it with shaking fingers. His own voice filled the air, slurred and ugly. "Nobody's gonna believe you. My dad owns this city. You're nothing." A girl's muffled crying followed. The third message was worse. Screenshots, emails, transactions, evidence of hush money. Tyler's jaw clenched. His hand tightened on Jessica's throat, but she noticed the change. The pressure came from desperation now, not dominance. "Who the hell?" he muttered, scrolling frantically. His lips moved as he read the last line of the text. "We know everything, Tyler. Your father's money can't bury this anymore. Check the news." Jessica's eyes flickered, but she said nothing. She didn't need to. Across the city, Marcus Chun sat in the dim glow of his laptop, hitting send one last time. His hands shook, not from fear, but from release. Months of gathering files, interviews, recordings, all of it was now out in the world. He had promised his sister he'd make Tyler pay for what he'd done to her. Tonight was the night that promise became reality. Back in the garage, Tyler's phone vibrated nonstop. Notifications from news sites, TMZ, social feeds exploding with his name. He scrolled in disbelief as the headlines stacked against him. Richardson heir under investigation. FBI opening files on alleged cover-ups. His face drained of color. Jessica, still pinned, tilted her head slightly. Her voice was low, calm, every word deliberate. "Money can't protect you forever." Her mother's muffled sobs still rang from behind the security glass, but Carmen's eyes had changed. She was crying, yes, but there was something else there now. Hope. For the first time, she realized her daughter wasn't a victim in this moment. She was the storm moving in. Tyler dropped his hand from Jessica's throat at last, staggering back as if her calm gaze burned him. His phone slipped from his grip, clattering onto the concrete. He scrambled to pick it up, his bravado cracking with every buzz of another headline, another accusation. "No," he muttered. "This isn't real. My father will fix this. He always fixes this." But his voice broke, and the certainty was gone. Jessica rubbed her throat, not in pain, but as though marking the moment. She stepped forward, her sneakers silent on the concrete, closing the space between them. For the first time, Tyler Richardson took a step back, and somewhere deep inside he understood This night wasn't going to end the way he thought. Tyler's back hit the side of a black Maserati with a metallic thud. The alarm didn't go off. His father's cars never screamed for help. But Tyler did. Not out loud. Not yet. His voice cracked in his chest. And for the first time, he looked less like the heir to a billion-dollar empire and more like a boy who just realized the world no longer bent to him. Jessica took a step closer. Her sneakers made no sound, but her presence was louder than any scream. The silence between them pressed like a weight, thick enough to choke. She rolled her shoulders once, almost casually, and the movement looked nothing like a scared college girl. It was a fighter's roll, loosening muscles before a strike. "Step back," she said, her voice steady, not loud, not trembling, commanding. Tyler barked a laugh, though it came out jagged. "Or what? You think you're gonna scare me? You're nothing but—" Jessica cut him off without raising her voice. "Do you know what they call me?" She let the question linger, her gaze sharp, unwavering. "Silent Storm." The name landed between them like a fist. Tyler blinked, confused. "In another life," she continued, her tone even, almost clinical, "I've fought men bigger than you, meaner than you, stronger than you, and they all made the same mistake." Her eyes narrowed, and for the first time she let a trace of a smile show. "They underestimated me." Tyler tried to laugh again, but his throat was dry. His phone buzzed in his hand, and without looking, he hurled it against the floor. The screen cracked, splintering into a spiderweb of broken glass. "This is insane," he spat. "You don't know who I am. My dad will bury you. He'll bury your mother. You'll be cleaning toilets in prison if you—" Jessica moved closer, her body tilting into a fighter's stance, so not you. Rally. It was as if her muscles had been waiting for this moment. She didn't swing, she didn't need to. Just the shift, the subtle lowering of her chin, the way her fists hovered with precision sent a message his drunken, arrogant brain finally began to understand. "You're not untouchable," she said softly. "Not anymore." Behind the security glass, Carmen's sobbing slowed. She pressed her hands against the window, her wide eyes fixed on her daughter. For the first time in her life, she saw Jessica not as her little girl, but as something else entirely. A protector. A force. Tyler's laugh died in his chest. He stepped sideways, trying to put distance between them, but Jessica followed, her every movement calm and measured, like a predator closing in. "Last chance," she told him. "Walk away." For a flicker of a moment, the arrogant smirk slipped completely from his face, and in its place was something raw, fear. But pride and privilege are hard things to kill. He straightened, forcing his shoulders back, and sneered. "You think you can end me? You're nothing. I'm Tyler Richardson. I'll ruin you." Jessica didn't blink. "No," she said, her voice like steel. "You've already ruined yourself." The words sliced through the garage, leaving Tyler trembling, his back against cold metal. And for the first time in his life, he was the one trapped, not the one in control. Tyler's chest heaved as if the walls themselves were pressing in on him. The concrete garage, once his playground of silence and shadows, now felt like a cage. Jessica didn't touch him. She didn't have to. Her presence was a blade against his throat, sharper than his own grip on hers had ever been. Then, from the broken shards of his phone on the floor, a voice spilled into the space. The speaker still worked, just barely, hissing out a live news broadcast. "Breaking story tonight. Tyler Richardson, heir to Richardson Realty, under investigation for multiple counts of assault and obstruction of justice. FBI confirms warrants are being executed." The words cut through the garage like gunfire. Tyler's head snapped toward the sound, his pupils shrinking. His hand twitched as if he could silence the world by sheer will. "No," he whispered. His voice cracked, thin. He grabbed the shattered phone, pressed it against his ear, desperate. Another headline bled through. "Exclusive photos from yacht parties, corroborated by several women who have come forward tonight, alleging years of abuse." His fingers slipped, the phone clattering back to the concrete. Jessica didn't move. She just watched, her eyes cold, her breathing calm, like a fighter waiting for the referee's count. Behind the glass, Carmen's tears had slowed to silence, her hands trembling against the barrier as she realized justice was unfolding in real time. Tyler's own reflection in the Maserati's polished surface stared back at him, pale and wild-eyed. He muttered to himself like a mantra, my dad will fix this. He'll fix everything. He always does." As if summoned, the phone in his pocket buzzed again. He answered instantly, fumbling with shaking fingers. "Dad, you saw what they're saying? Tell them it's not true. Tell them—" The voice on the other end was low, furious. Even Jessica said, "Shh." Tagisa could hear the venom through the crackling speaker. You stupid boy. Do you have any idea what you've done? The stock is crashing. The FBI is outside my door. You're not my son tonight. You're a liability. Tyler froze. Dad? Dad! But the line went dead. His world collapsed with the silence. The man who had shielded him from consequences since birth had just cut the cord. Jessica stepped forward, her shadow falling over him. He looked up at her, eyes wide, face pale, no longer the predator. Her voice was quiet, almost gentle. It's over. Tyler shook his head violently, scrambling backward until his back slammed against the wall. No, I'm Tyler Richardson. I'm Tyler Richardson. His chant was broken, desperate, his voice echoing through the cold garage until it sounded less like power and more like madness. Security guards finally burst in, Carmen stumbling in with them. She ran straight to Jessica, pulling her into her arms, trembling with relief. Jessica leaned into her mother, steady and calm, her eyes never leaving Tyler. The guards closed in, and for the first time in his life, Tyler Richardson didn't fight. He sagged against them, mumbling his own name like a man drowning. Carmen's sobs broke against her daughter's shoulder, but Jessica only whispered, steady as ever, "It's finished, Mom. He can't hurt us anymore." And as the guards dragged Tyler away, his phone buzzed one last time, lighting up with the headline that sealed his fate. 6 months later, the air inside Madison Square Garden thrummed like a living heartbeat. The arena lights glared down, painting the canvas of the ring in pure white brilliance. The crowd roared, 15,000 strong, their voices a tidal wave crashing against the walls. Banners with Silent Storm rippled in the stands, a name that had grown into a legend almost overnight. Jessica Santos stood in her corner, gloves laced, mouthguard tucked, her body coiled with calm energy. Her breathing was steady, not rushed. Every part of her moved with the discipline of someone who had lived in rings and gyms long before this night. But tonight wasn't just about fighting, it was about becoming. She glanced toward the front row. There sat Carmen Santos, not in her faded cleaning uniform, but in an elegant navy blazer. Her hands trembled slightly, clutching a program with her daughter's face printed on it. Pride and disbelief swam in her eyes. 6 months ago, she had been scrubbing floors under fluorescent lights. Tonight, she was the mother of the most anticipated debut in women's boxing. The announcer's voice boomed. Introducing in the blue corner, undefeated, 17 wins, 15 by knockout, the rising storm of the women's division, Jessica Silent Storm Santos. The crowd erupted. Camera flashes painted the arena with blinding light. Jessica lifted her gloves, but her eyes didn't wander to the cameras or the crowd. They went to her mother. A small nod passed between them, the same nod Jessica had given in the parking garage months earlier when everything had changed. Her opponent paced on the opposite side of the ring, a seasoned fighter with years of experience. But Jessica's mind wasn't consumed with fear of losing. She had already survived worse than any punch could deliver. Across the city, in a stark prison cell, Tyler Richardson sat on a metal bunk, the roar of the crowd replaced by the clang of bars. His once perfect hair hung limp, his face pale under fluorescent lights. Gone was the entitled smile, gone were the designer suits. His cellmates barely noticed him. In here, money had no weight, arrogance had no currency. He had become what he always feared most, irrelevant. The television mounted in the common room flickered with Jessica's fight, commentators telling her story with awe. Tyler watched in silence as the woman he once tried to break was now celebrated worldwide. He muttered her name under his breath, but it was no prayer. It was a curse that dissolved into the emptiness of his cell. Back in the ring, the bell clanged. Round 1. Jessica moved with grace, her footwork light, her punches precise. Every strike echoed with more than physical force. It carried the weight of years spent underestimated, silenced, and dismissed. In the 4th round, she found her opening. A crisp uppercut, clean and brutal, lifted her opponent off her feet. The woman collapsed, the referee's count booming over the roaring crowd. Jessica stood tall, chest heaving, eyes sharp. Victory wasn't just in the knockout, it was in the silence that followed, the stunned realization in every heart watching that they were witnessing the rise of something unstoppable. The referee raised her arm, declaring her the winner. Reporters swarmed the ring, microphones pressed toward her. "Jessica, Silent Storm, what's your inspiration? What drives you?" She removed her mouthguard, her voice calm but unshakable as it carried through every speaker. "Every punch I throw is for the women who were silenced, humiliated, underestimated. The best revenge isn't destroying the ones who hurt you, it's building something so powerful they can never touch you again." The arena exploded. Carmen cried openly in the front row, whispering a prayer of thanks through her tea. Arse. Jessica raised her gloves, but she didn't smile in triumph. She smiled in peace. Tyler had tried to make her small. Instead, he had created a storm so vast that his name was nothing but debris swept away in its wake. In the end, Tyler Richardson had been forgotten, and Jessica Santos had become unforgettable.